Hi everybody, my name is Brighton. I'm the captain of Team 1678.
My name is Kelly, and I'm the vice captain of Team 1678.
Cool, so I already kind of went around and got demographics. We have a few captains, few sub-team leads, lots of different teams, which is awesome. And we want to have a discussion today, so stop us, ask a question if you have a question that's related to what we're talking about, and then of course we'll have general Q&A and stuff at the end, but
We're also going to direct some questions to you guys as well. So we do want there to be conversation that does happen, and discussion that does happen. So
yes.
please engage in discussion, and please work with us, because that's the best way for us to help you guys out.
Cool.
So to start out, and just kind of some general disclaimers, who are we? So as Brian already mentioned, we are the captain and vice captain of 1678. This is the fourth year for both of us, or fourth year on 1678, and we've both been sub-team leads before that, before becoming captains. We're also happen to both be programmers, so that's a fun way to start out. So just like all of you, we guys are high school students too, and also just like you, we love FRC and everything that has to do with FIRST and robotics and everything like that. So basically what we want to be able to do in this presentation is just talk to you guys about some of the things that we've learned being captains and being in leadership positions, things that we found work really well for us, so we can help you guys run your team smoothly as well. So as a kind of general disclaimer, we are not professionals with leadership or anything like that. We're high school students just like you guys are. And so because of that, if you do have questions, please feel free to ask us questions. But yeah, we are not experts at all. We just want to help you guys out as best we can. So what we're going to be going over today is we're going to start out by just going over an overview of our team structure and what that looks like, and then going into some of the key points of leading a team, such as like communication and just general organization of people and things like that. And then we're also going to talk about our team culture and how to make a really strong team culture on your team, so there's no hostility between sub-teams or anything like that. And also good ways to make sure your mentors and your students are on the same page and are communicating well together. And then finally, we're going to talk about the future going forward with our team, and also helping you guys move forward with your team visuals.
Cool. Yeah, I can flip for you.
So just to start out with, basically, as a student leader in FIRST, our goal is to empower all of our teammates as best as we can and help them become the best team that we can all together as a whole. And most of that happens by working towards a common goal. And that goal for us is the mission and vision statement of FRC. And so, have you guys heard the mission and vision statement of FRC? Or FIRST in general? Raise your hands if you've heard it.
I've read it, but I don't know.
Read it?
To be completely honest, I didn't know it till like a year or two ago.
So,
I read it on the website because it has it under there. What is this?
It does.
About it's right there. It's
Yep.
the first thing that pulls up.
first thing that pops up, and none of you have like read it extensively, kind of know what it's about. Okay, so I'm just gonna read to you guys the vision statement, which is how FIRST and FRC want to move forward and what they want their students to get out of that. And so their vision statement is to transform our culture by creating a world where science and technology are celebrated and where young people dream of becoming science and technology leaders. And so that's something that our team, especially, we have our own mission and vision statement for our team that we've shaped around not only the goals of our team, but also the goals of FIRST and FRC. Because those are the goals that we're truly striving towards. We're striving to create students who will become the next leaders in science and technology and math and engineering. So that's really the goal of our team, and hopefully that's the goal of your team too, is to help create new leaders for the world moving forward.
Can I go? Cool.
Thank you. So first we're going to talk about creating effective structures. So FRC teams are kind of treated like companies sometimes. There's more than one way to organize an FRC team, obviously, and so we're just going to start out kind of about how our team is organized. So our team is organized into 4 sub-teams, and those sub-teams are programming, electrical, mechanical, and business and media. So each of those sub-teams are broken down a little bit more. There's 2 different programming teams, and mechanical is divided up into fabrication and design. And so each of those different sub-teams have sub-team leaders, though. And so, like I mentioned before, Brighton and I are both sub-team leaders of the 2 different programming divisions, and then our other sub-team leaders are giving presentations right now. Amanda, our business media lead, is giving a presentation on PR, and our mechanical leads are giving presentations on mechanical design. And so, we also, on our team, something unique that we've started just in the past year is creating an outreach lead. And so on our team, what are the main goals? Remember how I was talking about mission and vision statements? Well, our mission and vision statements circle around the three main ideas for our team, and that's competition, education, and outreach. And so to us, those three things matter just as importantly as everything else. And we have become a highly competitive team in recent years, and that's something we're extremely proud of. But in addition to that, we're extremely proud of the outreach that we're able to do in our community and the education that we've just been able to supply to students not only in our communities, but surrounding communities as well. And so that kind of ties together just to generally shape our team and the way that our team moves forward with each event. So yeah, for that, all of our outreach projects that we have on our team, which are all coordinated by an outreach lead, those are opportunities for students to step up and take lead of a smaller project, something that is not as large as, say, a sub-team that may be composed of like up to 20 students or so, but something with a little bit smaller, working with maybe just 3 or 4 people to organize something that they can do to reach out into our community. And so finally, one thing that we've found to work really, really well for helping to organize our team is by creating this team handbook. So this team handbook outlines to all of our students the expectations that we have of them and the expectations of our mentors and parents. So one thing that we found is keeping everyone on the same page is extremely important. And while our team handbook may be a little bit on the long side, what it does is it outlines what we find to be really, really important in students. And some of those things are listed up here, which include timeliness, professionalism, being able to communicate well, and just being able to handle yourself well in any sort of given situation. So this is a team handbook that we have all of our new students read. There's a contract at the end that we have them sign to agree to certain aspects of our team, like being able to communicate well, communicate when you're going to miss meetings, communicate when you're going to miss competitions, things like that, as well as our dress codes in there as well. And so this helps us to provide transparency also about how decisions are made. It outlines how we choose new sub-team leads. It outlines how we choose our drive team at competition. It outlines how we choose our travel team at competition. So that's something that we're very upfront about that. So students know that going into our team. So that helps us just make sure that everyone's on the same page joining the team and moving forward. So any questions so far?
If not, I have a specific question for everyone. So are there any of you that have either a mission or vision or even just a set of core values or a statement as to what your team's goals are that you share with, maybe new members or with your community? Anything that sounds like that? It doesn't have to be called a mission or vision. Yeah?
Yeah, we do. We have a mission and vision. We have a handbook.
Cool. So do you know, like, roughly, could you explain just for the group, like the 2-sentence version of what that?
Well, I think it's the same sort of as yours. It has to do with engaging students in science and technology to become leaders in the future world, and that same sort of language that I think you guys.
Yeah. So I think in my experience, a couple of the most important things about having the mission and vision, it's really useful for making kind of higher level decisions about maybe projects and whether or not your team should take on a certain project. The question you can ask, instead of just kind of it gets kind of vague if you don't have a mission or vision, at least occasionally. And so if you have one, you can go say, well, does doing this project really directly bring us closer to meeting our vision? Does this feed directly into what we're trying to accomplish? It brings some kind of concreteness to hard, abstract decisions. And then the handbook, it's good in that it brings everybody, like Kelly mentioned, on the same page, but also that they can see if they've done something that isn't marked as acceptable by the handbook, it doesn't feel so much like you as a leader just don't like them and you're trying to get rid of them or punish them in some way. Like, they can see that this is something the entire team has agreed is the way we want to act, or especially professionalism issues, it's the way we want to communicate and be around one another. So it's less of it's the leader's fault and more of it's easier for people to kind of take responsibility for those situations. That makes sense? Cool.
So planning meetings and...
Actually, with that question?
I was wondering if you guys had a scouting team. Like
Yeah.
up in the stands and
We do have a
pit
scouting
as
team.
well?
Yeah, we do. We actually.
Is this? I'm just wait. What's the continuation of the question?
So
Just-
like pit scouting, stand scouting.
Yeah. Is this related to leadership?
Yeah. Well, you said you have a lead for that. Or,
Yes.
Yeah, we have a lead. We have a lead scout.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one example of, that's someone who's not really in our core leadership, but that's someone that we expect at competition to really step up and be able to organize all of our scouts. They also end up helping to organize our parents too, which can almost be more difficult than organizing the students at times.
Perhaps you could explain that you have two teams that you mentioned earlier, Kelly. You have the
Yes.
programming team, which actually is really split into two teams.
Yes.
You could mention those, and also the mechanical team is split into two sub-teams.
I mentioned that.
Yeah. She mentioned that.
You did mention that?
Yes.
Okay. So to clarify on that, our programming team is split up into a programming team that focuses specifically on programming the robot, and then that's a sub-team I'm in charge of, and then Brighton's in charge of the app programming sub-team. which-
That's scouting.
Yeah, that's scouting. They create a scouting app for us to use on tablets, and that's what we scout with.
That's what I'm in charge of as well.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And that definitely is. It requires leadership as much as any other sub team. No, wait, no. You're still on this slide.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Cool.
So writing meetings and planning deadlines. So one thing, we've talked a little bit about having that core set of leads on our team, which are usually, we have it composed of our captain and co-captain as well as our sub-team leads. And so one thing that we do every week is we have a leadership meeting. And this happens right before our general meeting. And it usually lasts about an hour and a half. And so what we do here is we bring up just issues that we have on the team. And so these could be things that other students have brought to our attention, like, hey, I'm having difficulty doing X, Y, Z. Or it could be more broader things like, hey, can we get an update on our sponsorships? How are sponsorships going? Or something like, we're considering going to another regional. Is that something we want to discuss as a team? So that's one way to make sure that all the sub-team leads are on the same page. Just about more general top-down sort of decisions that the team makes. Because sometimes that just gets all caught up with just the mentors, right? Sometimes the mentors are the ones who are making some of the higher decisions about purchases or what competitions you go to, how you register for those competitions, organizing parents for transportation. Sometimes that goes over the student leaders' heads, but that's something that we found that by really keeping the students engaged in that, they can all stay on the same page and help just the whole team move forward as a whole. And so, I mentioned this happens about once a week, and it happens right before our team meeting. So we meet twice. We meet Wednesday evenings and Thursday evenings during the off season, and then during build season we also meet on the weekends from about 9 to 5. And so this is time that right now we currently have about 86 people on our team, close to 90.
We have 88 people who have committed to coming to 75% of meetings for the rest of the year. So
And that includes weekend meetings, and those
Yeah.
weekend meetings are over 8 hours, or tend to be. And so that's a huge commitment from our students. And so at our team meetings, one thing that we really, really push for is just making sure that everyone stays on the same page. And so at team meetings, you're getting a lot of teenagers together, and you do have one single common goal. Kind of in the off season, you get distracted, right? You start gossiping, talking with your friends, things like that. And so what we found, one thing that we really want to communicate to you is this is all about student leaders, not just captain and co-captain, but this is also about sub-team leads and just more veteran students on the team in general. Is stepping up into those leadership positions and making sure that everyone stays on the same page. Everyone knows what their current goal is, and moving everyone forward. That's something that's really, really important as your student leadership, is making sure that everyone moves forward. Finally, planning for these meetings is even more important. So we're going to talk about communication in a moment. Yeah.
Okay, actually, just a question about something earlier. So you
Yeah.
said you had like 80 students and then like 75% participation, or like was it commitment for
Yeah.
for 75% of the meetings. Is there like a way to track that, or like?
We do take attendance at all of our meetings. Each of our sub-teams has a sub-team meeting at the beginning where they meet for about 10 to 15 minutes to discuss what that sub-team is working on for that day. So, for example, my sub-team would meet to talk about, we're packing for CCC and getting ready to run workshops or something like that. And then we also take attendance at that time. So we do have an attendance log of everyone who's showing up to what meetings and whether or not they've notified us before that they're going to be absent.
So is there like a
It's a spreadsheet, Google spreadsheet.
Oh no, but I mean like if they don't like fulfill commitment or anything, is there like?
I mean, that's why we have students sign the handbook. They're agreeing at the beginning of the year that I will make 75% of the team meetings. And obviously there's some things you can't prevent, right? If something comes up, and we can't help that. But we're going to move into communication, which is why communicating that is really important. But if a student isn't meeting the time commitment, as usually it's up to the sub-team lead to talk to them first about it. Hey, why are you missing meetings, something like that. If it does become like grievous, or they just are missing meetings, not communicating about it, things like that, sometimes Brighton and myself could get involved to talk about it, but
Yeah,
I mean,
that happens.
one thing that we really say is you get out of this what you put into it. And so if you're not showing up to meetings, you're not showing up to meetings. You aren't learning anything new, which means later down the road, you probably won't be picked for something like travel team. You probably won't be given leadership chances to step up and like be an outreach lead or sub-team lead or something like that. So it's really just more detrimental to that person.
Yeah.
More than anything. Yeah. So planning. We have a team calendar, and how many of you guys have a team calendar? Like a Google Calendar or something?
Nice.
And that's shared with like everyone on your team, right? Yeah. So that's really important. It's making sure everyone knows when your meetings are. If they don't know when they are, they aren't going to show up, right? And so making sure everyone knows when your meetings are, mentors, parents included, that's really important. One thing that we've used in the past has been a Gantt chart. So how many of you know what a Gantt chart is? You know what a Gantt chart is? A couple of people? Okay. So basically how a Gantt chart works is it's a big chart, and you have on one side outlined everything that you're going to be doing, everything that needs to be done, and then there's a timeline that goes across the top to top. And you mark out for each project how long, at what point in time, what time frame does that each project work. So this is something that we use in build season, because we found that it's really, really effective to make sure that each of the sub-teams stay on task. So mechanical has on the Gantt chart an area marked out specifically that says, this is when you are working on the drive base of the robot. And so that holds people responsible for, hey, at the end of this time frame, base of the robot needs to be done, drive base needs to be done, needs to be handed off to the next group so they can start working. So that's laid out for all of the different sub-teams. And so that's something that really helps us stay on track during build season. We know when we're behind schedule, we know when there's going to be a break in the schedule, and we can maybe catch things up. It also is really good at making sure that you know how fast competitions are approaching, and making sure that things like bag and tag day, you know when that day is, and competitions, you know, hey, you have 7 more days till competition, but 2 of those days are going to be travel days, and you know, one of those days, you know, you can't meet or something like that. It really, really helps show when exactly everything's being worked on.
I think we can almost all relate to competitions, like time accelerates as competitions approach. The Gantt chart kind of helps like grab that time and keep it going a little slower.
So communicating effectively. There's many different platforms for communication, which I'm sure you guys know, email, texting, various things like that. So I think the most important thing is email. Almost everyone has an email in this day and age. And so email is probably the best way to get an announcement out to a group of people. It's just, when we have students registered to join our team, they give us an email and they give us their parent email. And that way, we know, we just tell them, you know, you have to check your email, this is how you're going to get updates from our team. And so we send out emails, probably 3 or 4 emails a week to people, just on everything from, must have sent out like 7 emails this week about CCC, but just sending out emails to make sure everyone's on the same page, everyone knows what's happening, everyone knows what's coming up. Things as general as, hey, we have a meeting coming up this week, and this is what, we need you guys to all wear your team shirts because we're taking a team picture or something like that. That's really important, making sure that's communicated.
And email is one of those things that if someone, isn't, that we would put in that team handbook we mentioned earlier, say you check and respond to urgent emails within 48 hours of receiving them. That means every student needs to be checking their email every other day. It's not that hard, but if you have maybe a couple students that don't do it, it can really end up hurting you. So that's one of the things, we make students sign that they're going to do that. And if they don't, we have their sub-team lead or one of the captains go and address it as soon as we know, because we really want them. It would be very sad if a couple of those new students who weren't so great at checking email yet didn't get the email that said when they were supposed to arrive for carpools to CCC, because then they wouldn't be here. And so it seems simple, but you have to kind of be on top of it. Sorry.
Yeah. So one thing about that too is that one thing that we found is not all of our students go to the same school. So if everyone goes to the same school, you can't run into someone at school and be like, hey, did you check your email? Did you see, this is coming up or whatever. But for us, Davis is really weird in the sense that 10th through 12th graders are all at the same school, but 9th graders, freshmen, are all at different schools. So we actually pull from about 5 different schools in the Davis area. And we also have homeschool students who are on the team as well. So that's something where it's like, we aren't going to see everyone on a day-to-day basis. We aren't going to see them at school. We're not going to see them in math class. So email is about the only way that we can consistently get in contact with everyone, especially especially when you have people on the team who don't have cell phones either. So email is about the only way to communicate with people. One thing that's really important is making sure your students and your mentors stay on the same page. So we found 2 things that have really helped with this, which are Slack and Trello. Does anyone recognize those 2 things? Slack, Trello.
Yeah.
Okay, so really briefly, Slack is like a messaging app, and it allows you to have different channels where you can talk about different things. So we have a team Slack, and we have different channels for like mechanical design, talking about what they're doing. But we also have it broken down into like sub-teams and then a leadership team channel and things like that. So you can have all of your group conversations, just like general chatter that sometimes happens around email. You get like 15 emails about some people confirming that they can do something. That all kind of gets absorbed into Slack, where it's just a messaging app that handles all of that. It's designed to help companies as well organize people like that, so I highly recommend it. Trello is also another thing for organizing schedules. It allows you to create events and assign them to different people to hold them accountable for getting things done. And you can have like different lists for various things like that. Also, parents, keeping your parents on the same page. We mentioned that we all have all of our parents on our email listserv, but in addition to that, we also send out a newsletter every month. So our business and media team puts together a newsletter that consists of what our team's been working on, what events we've gone to, how we've done at those events, just general progress of the robot and our outreach teams, and sometimes they include like a student interview or something like that. And then that newsletter gets sent out to all of our parents and sometimes even to our alumni as well. So they can just be kept up to date about what their students are working on. You know when you come home from school and your parents are like, "What did you do at school today?" And you're like, "Oh, nothing," and like they drop it at that. Well, that basically happens with us all the time. And so we always get parents asking us, "Hey, what are you guys working on?" Blah blah blah. So this allows us to just keep the parents informed about what's happening each month and what's coming up and everything like that. Finally, like I mentioned before, our newsletters also go out to our sponsors, and so this allows our sponsors who are invested in your team to also be kept on the same page about what your team's been working on, what it plans to be working on, things like that. We also do presentations for all of our sponsors, so it's really important to just keep really good communication with your sponsors, and that's something that we have definitely struggled with in the past. We've lost sponsors through poor communication and things like that, so making sure you stay on the same page with your sponsors is really, really important. So we do presentations, we give them also tours of our shop occasionally. If they want to come and visit, we'll give them a tour of our shop, see our students working and things like that. Just remaining on good lines with your sponsors is important. Finally, our community. So it would be really great if our whole school came out and watched our robotics competitions just like they go out and watch football or soccer games, right? But unfortunately, that doesn't always happen all the time. So one thing that we've tried to do as best as possible is just keep the community engaged with what our team's doing. Our high school team, probably like some of yours, is located at our robotics team is located at a high school, but that doesn't mean that everyone at the high school is in tune to what you're doing as they are to the sports teams. So one thing we do is we create flyers, we send out emails, things like that, to not only our school to make sure they mention it in a daily bulletin or things like that, but also just get the word out to our general community as well. We have a farmer's market in Davis, and so at that farmer's market, we're allowed to have our booth, and at that booth, we advertise events that are coming up just to get the community involved. One example of this is we have a Wisdom conference coming up, and so we've been presenting at farmer's market, trying to encourage young girls to come to our Wisdom conference and just get them involved, and that's one way where those people are in the community, and they really don't get updated on our team at all, but that's one way we can reach them.
An addition for farmers market, and then I'll grab your question. So a couple of years ago, we had one FLL team that our team was kind of supporting, and essentially through farmers market and handing out flyers to random kids and driving around a little, actually we've been doing a Vex robot, we're up to almost 30 teams 2 years later. So just getting handing a little kid the remote control to a Vex robot is a pretty close to guaranteed way to get them to start playing, which is a pretty close to guaranteed way to get their parent to walk over. And then from there, you have, new mentor, sponsorship, or at least another kid on one of your teams. And it happens really, really fast.
Yeah, I've got to say, if it wasn't for the farmer's market booth, I would have never joined Citrus Circuits. So, it really works reaching out to the community. You never know who you're going to get. Yeah.
Our team spent 4 days at the El Dorado County Fair with our robot and let kids drive, shoot the ball, and we brought the castle we had built and little kids. It was really popular.
Yeah.
Little kids could use joysticks.
like FRC people start to get used to it, but most people are like really surprised when they see a robot like ours.
Also, the number of kids who play video games these days, they can drive a robot. So, yeah, do you have a question?
How do you keep track of your contacts?
Our contacts?
Yeah, do you have a spreadsheet or?
Google spreadsheet.
Google spreadsheet. Our business and media team handled all of our contacts. So they have a it's basically just a Google spreadsheet, and then it's assigned to different, there's a mentor and a student contact for each of our sponsors.
And your, do you also use spreadsheets for taking, like, fundraisers and stuff? People sign up to bring food, snacks to the shop or whatever?
Google Forms, we've done that before
Google Forms are
for
great.
helping people to volunteer, but also Sign Up Genius is really good. Sign Up Genius, yes.
Yeah.
Is really good. You can create like events in it and have people be assigned to each date,
Okay.
and you can add comments to that as well. So that's what we do for having our parents sign up to bring lunches. On there, they can sign up for a date, and then it tells them how many people are coming and how much food they need to provide and things like that.
I suppose before I go on, any more questions about this kind of stuff? Okay. So, no surprises. A leader who is respected is much more able to fluidly organize a team, get stuff done, move people to do what they need to do to achieve a common goal. Unfortunately, as I think many of us have experienced, getting respect isn't always as easy as it maybe should be. So, if you're that kid on your sub-team, and I totally envy all of those people, who is clearly the best at whatever technical, thing they're doing. So they're the best robot programmer, or they're the best person at managing the pneumatics and wiring on the robot, then you have at least some respect kind of by default because people look at your ability. But often, I'm gonna go often, that person is not necessarily the best leader. And now sometimes they absolutely are. But sometimes there needs to be another way that people who aren't the most technically competent just understand enough to lead the team and have lots of good communication skills. They're really professional. They embody your teams and first mission and vision. They work really hard. Those kind of people sometimes make better leaders. But it's hard for them to get buy-in, get the other members of their sub-team to respect them. And so the way to do this, there's no perfect formula, but be the person who is like working really hard, working hardest, I would say, and make sure people notice that. It sounds silly to make sure people notice that, but it's important because you can sit there working longer than anyone else, 6 out of 7 days, like most of your sub team will just have gone home and have no idea. Another good thing is to be that person who is really communicative and actually not only communicative, but like in a positive way. So when someone on your sub team does something right, you praise that. You publicly commend them for not only the product, which obviously is critical, but also for assuming it was something that required a lot of work, for working hard, and make your culture one that values working really hard. And then you also, when people are not giving you the respect you need, you don't step down. Some of these things probably are obvious to most of you, but I just want to cover them. You don't step down to that level. You don't yell back when they're being rude or yelling at you, et cetera, et cetera. You kind of be the better person. You be the more effective teammate. And that will show. And then, of course, if it keeps happening, there is a way to approach that person in a respectful but really direct manner and say, here's some things, I value your being on this team, but here's some things I've noticed that you do that really hurt our team, and here's why they hurt it, and I need this to stop now. And you in that kind of case, you want to have communicated with a mentor, someone with the authority, and you hold them accountable to changing their behavior if it comes to that point. But I think in my entire time leading, that's happened once. So hopefully it's not something that happens a lot.
One thing to kind of add on
Yeah.
to that is, do any of you guys have younger siblings?
This is a great
Are any
example.
of you a younger sibling? Yeah, so you kind of know how this battle goes, right? You know, one of you pokes the other
Yeah.
one, and one pokes back, and you guys start getting an argument, right? And usually the older sibling, you're the one who's told by your parents to take the higher road, right? You need to, you know, don't pick on your little sibling. You know, if they start acting up, you know, don't get riled up by them. You have to be the bigger person. And that's something as a student leader, that's something you always, always, always have to be embodying. You always have to be that bigger person. And I gotta tell you, sometimes the people who are the biggest children can sometimes be your mentors as well. So just making sure that you're on, you always have to be the bigger person, regardless of if it's someone who's older than you, someone who's younger than you. By setting that good example and being that bigger person, you will gain a lot of respect, especially from your mentors and even your students.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. That was a good example. Anyone have a specific, I mean, don't name names, obviously, but a specific instance, you know, that you could share in a couple of sentences that was kind of frustrating because someone being disrespectful to you or being disrespectful to someone else on your team was really slowing down your team's ability to kind of function? Anyone have someone? Okay, we don't have to go into it. I know it's a sensitive one. Cool. So, team culture. This one is nice and warm and fuzzy if you want it to be, and it can also be what kills your team if you let it. So you can think of it as the vibe that goes on in the team, or honestly, I concretely think about it as what's the tone in which students speak to one another and speak to their mentors. That's one of the more concrete ways to see it. You know, are they cold but just respectful enough? Are they, you know, clearly friends? You know, are they so much friends that they don't get anything done? You know, what's the kind of feeling that's involved in that communication? So I want to go into a few different ways that your team vibe could be, and a way you could maybe change that to be something you prefer. So the first one is a lot of teams, I know ours included a couple years ago, we're experiencing a little bit of an animosity from a significant portion of students because they felt that they didn't have the right transparency or understanding of what team leadership was doing. And especially as teams get bigger, this happens more and more. So the way we responded was by starting the sub-team meetings that Kelly mentioned before, which include not only talking to teammates about like, hey, here's what we're going to do today, but also asking them every single meeting, do you have anything you'd like to bring up with the sub-team about the way we communicate or about the way the team runs, any concerns or even just questions? And that's a good time for it. Doing that, being asked makes students feel like the leadership really cares, which obviously they do, but often there's a feeling that they don't. And then it also it's a good way to get that input. And then there's also cases where, students just kind of go off and on their own and, are maybe talking smack about XYZ people, doing the little gossip thing that happens in 7th grade or so. And that's a little bit harder to address because it can't really come from the team leadership, or the mentor, which is generally the person or people that they're gossiping about. So where that has to come from is these kind of one-on-one interactions where like senior members, even if they're not leadership, or even kind of juniors on the team, you raise enough of a support that I have a relationship with, say, the vice captain, and I know that she's a good person, and that she's not this evil person that everyone else is talking about. I don't know about this one, but we'll see. And so if you make enough connections, that's kind of the only way you can fight off that the little cliquey gossip gangs. So this is a little bit of a fuzzy, hard to pin down topic. Does anyone have questions? Is there anything that I said that wasn't clear?
One thing I do kind of want to go over is team bonding.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. I wanted to stop. Thanks, though. So yeah, team bonding, game nights, fun. Team bonding is another good way to kind of humanize almost some of, especially the mentors. Like, so these are not just like technical people that say, no, you did that wrong. They're, you know, people that will play Set or Scrabble or D&D or whatever with you. And so you can kind of hold these where you say, hey, we actually call them WADPANs, work all day, play all night. So you work team meeting 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then 5 until whenever mentors and students want to go home, you kind of just hang out, play board games, maybe watch a nerdy movie, do things like that. And then at the end of the year, we have, I think a lot of teams do, we have a team party at someone's house who wants to host, and it's a nice way to close the year. You have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really have to be like game nights or things like that. We've gone ice skating together.
Yeah,
We've
that's
gone
true.
to see movies together as a team. And it's something where it's like, you're taken out of the setting of robotics and you can just kind of be friends. And I think one thing that we haven't really talked a lot about, we've talked a little bit about student-to-student animosity, but sub-team-to-sub-team animosity can always be a thing. Like, we have an ongoing debate about whether it's a programming issue or it's an electrical issue. It happens on a weekly basis. And I gotta say, I've had some issues with people on the electrical team before. We've gotten into fights about things like that. But it's like going ice skating with them, playing dodgeball with them. And that's something where it's like you can like become their friend and you can kind of like help to heal some of the animosity between students. And I mean, we're probably still gonna have this programming versus electrical debate next week. But like at the same time, they're also my friends, and so there is that kind of human aspect of it where you can kind of cross those sub-team bounds. Because it's like, I'm a programmer. I never go in the shop, like, ever. I go in, like, maybe once a week. And, like, but I'm still really good friends with everyone in there, and I still know them. And that's something that's really, really helpful for your team culture, is that everyone on the team is friendly with one another. It's like, just because they're a mechanical person, that doesn't mean I have to, like, be hostile with them or anything.
Cool. Any questions about this? Cool. Great. Okay, let's just take a moment to look at this cat. Because cats are great. Also, why do they always sit on your keyboard? I don't know. It's a thing.
Wherever you're at, it's going to be in the convenient spot to stop.
All right. So, why are we talking about cats? Aside from the fact that they're cats, so we heard cats hurting people, moving people around at competition. It's pretty difficult, and especially at a competition when it's very high stress, people become very unhappy and very dysfunctional when they don't eat, or when rides leave late and arrive late to competition, or essentially when any kind of logistical people-moving task goes wrong. So we do our best to avoid mistakes in these areas. First, it's really a communication issue. So rule of thumb, anytime there's a group of students, if you're the person who is responsible for moving this group, so for me, roughly the whole team, I need to either be within speaking distance of all of them, or have someone I know will be lightning fast on text or whatever who is within speaking distance of all of them when I need to move them. So at a typical competition, during match play, I'll be walking around the pits doing strategy stuff. I need to know exactly who my contact is, who will be in the stands. I need to know who my contact is, who will be in the pit, in our pit. I need to, be in contact with the parent who's bringing food for the team and know when that's going to happen. Be in contact with whoever is organizing all the drivers, stuff like that. So it's really making this kind of one-on-one connection and saying, hey, you are going to be in this place at this time, and you are going to look at your texts and make sure that they agree to that and are ready to do it. So no generic recipe for success on herding cats, but there are some things you can do. When you are organizing people, sometimes you need to yell or be loud. Often, I know I've mistakenly taken that as people being like unprofessional or being, angry at the group. So especially when you're yelling, like, be almost overly friendly, so that especially when everyone is stressed, there isn't a feeling that, Mr. Harvey's really angry at me or something like that, because he's angry all the time, right? It's like the Hulk. And then one final thing about herding cats. Don't be like so herdy that people don't feel like they can, have some team spirit and stand up when they're scouting and cheer, or that they feel like I can't possibly move or else I will be letting my team down. They just have to either not move or be good at communicating. It's really just a communication issue. And then also, this seems silly, but when everybody goes to lunch, please leave one person who's going to watch all the backpacks and all the expensive equipment and stuff that's in the stands. And don't make it the same person every time, because it's not very fun to be that person.
Just one more thing is we've talked a lot about like team captain, as Brian mentioned, like team captain competition, organizing people. But this is one thing where it's like, even if you aren't a team captain, if you're a sub-team lead, if you're a veteran student on the team, you are a role model for the other students on the team. Younger students on the team, if it's their first competition, they're going to be a little bit silly. They're going to joke around a little bit. They're going to get off topic. They're going to want to wander, things like that. It's really, like, as Brian said, it's really, really important for your captains to be communicating with one another and with your mentors, but also make sure that your veteran students are setting a really, really good example. Because when you have a massive group of people that you're trying to talk to, and there's people in the back not paying attention, that's when it's, you won't notice it, but that's when a veteran student turns around and is like, hey guys, listen up, this is important, things like that. So you don't have to do that, and everyone just stays on the same page. It's like, that's your responsibility as a team leader, regardless if you're your captain or co-captain or, anything like that. Just, again, being that bigger person.
Yeah.
Is that something what you guys are saying? Because you're probably not going to say this because you're too humble to say it.
Sure.
But as members of your team, give your captain and your other leaders the utmost respect, and remember that they are taking on a huge responsibility you're not having to take on. So you can make their life a lot easier by listening to what they're saying and paying them attention and giving them a lot of respect. They deserve it.
I guess that's one thing
Well,
talked
we
about.
hope we deserve it.
Is
Did you already
that-
mention that?
We did not.
No, but similarly, like, as we talked about, like, getting respect, it's really, really hard, but it really does pay off. People are really going to listen to people who they respect and people that they look up to.
Yeah. So avoiding hungry teenagers, making them into cute kitties, that's the goal. Anyone have any kind of experiences they want to share, questions about this topic, anything we can discuss regarding how to effectively move people and keep them on the same page?
Have you ever lost someone in competition? Yeah.
I have. Last year's strategist.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So succession in leadership is really important. That means that as a leader, even if it's just of a small task, like, hey, I'm the only one that knows how to effectively pack or set up and break down our pit, or I'm the only one that knows how to pack the van or the trailer or whatever it is. Or if it's something bigger like a captain or a sub-team lead or an outreach lead, it's important to identify people before you graduate, preferably a year or two before you graduate, who might be a future lead, people who have shown a lot of dedication, people who have shown a lot of professionalism, especially people who actually have expressed that they would like to lead. Those are great. And just people that you trust to really do everything they can for the team, and you trust that will still be around consistently. So finding those people, communicating with them about, hey, this is no guarantee, but I want you to maybe start, if you're interested, I want you to start thinking about what would happen if you were to be in this leadership role that I have, a year or so from now. And start teaching them about those little things that you do. Like, I always double check that I, lock the trailer before we leave it for the night, because, of all the things to double check, that one's worth doing. And just make those things communicated. And if you don't have time, or you can't think of each one of them to tell them in person, or you're worried they'll forget, which they probably will, highly recommend writing out kind of a debrief or a job description that's got those details in it. And then you can just have leaders in that position keep adding to that, and it'll just get better and better every year, so that if you are the new leader coming in, you have a description of what you need to do. Any questions on that? We're almost done, and we're also running out of time, so I just wanted to... Cool.
I have a question about how you, or
Yeah.
maybe you're gonna get to it, or I don't know.
We'll ask a question.
How you select your captains? You
Yeah.
team select them,
about it?
A little bit of both. So we have, well, one thing we've been really pushing is we want communication, feedback, opinions of all sort to be really open. So anytime, a team member has a suggestion for, be it what competition should we go to or who should be the next captain, they should feel comfortable sharing that with a mentor or with a sub-team lead or the current captain. And then we also created, somewhat recently, a system of recommendations. So you can write your own recommendation, essentially an application to be captain. We open that up several weeks before they get picked. And that it's a series of questions. We actually just did it on a Google form where you write in, it's just really a why. Would you be the right person for this? And then we also run, we do interviews with the current captains and two of our lead mentors. Mr. Harvey is one of them. And in the end, it's those four people, the two lead mentors and the current captain and vice captain, that make the selection. And that goes for both leadership and for travel team. The same thing. So we take recommendations, we take applications. Actually, we don't technically take applications for travel team. The sub-team leads recommend people from their sub-team, and then those four people make a final list. Does that answer your question? Cool. Anything else? Great. All right. So, and this will not take long. So resources, obviously the Google Drive is a great way to organize your own team's resources. You got, your documents, spreadsheets, forms, presentations. This is on the Google Drive. Everything in there goes with the email really nicely, because since a lot of people not only have an email, a lot of people have a Gmail, they almost automatically have the ability to get to this stuff pretty quickly. And then it integrates really well if you're one of those teams that uses Slack like we do. You can paste a Google Drive URL in there, and it will be available on the channel in this little list of Google documents and automatically shared with everyone in there. It's really great for using together. Chief Delphi, really cool place. If you haven't been there, you should go. And then YouTube, there's a mixture of quality of content on YouTube. It's a great place to watch, like reveal videos if that's what you're interested in, Chairman's videos. Robot in 3 days, great for the first few days of build season when you're trying to figure out what might work, trying to prototype. Good for prototyping ideas. You can also watch webcasts. Week 0, we have all of our scouts watch one of the Week 0 events and practice scouting on the new apps. So it serves as a good test for the whole scouting system and gets everyone practice. And then they know what the game looks like too, which is good. Anyone else have cool resources they recommend? Some team websites are great too. Kind of depends.
Stack Overflow?
If you're a programmer, Stack Overflow, yes.
These presentations will also be on YouTube. So if
These presentations will be on YouTube, yes.
there's a presentation at the same time that you missed, or one tomorrow or Sunday that you can't go to, it will be on YouTube.
I'm gonna see two afterwards.
Cool. Okay. So that is it for most of our presentation. Thank you guys for being here. And I just want to open up any questions of any sort about leadership in FRC. Yeah?
How do you select people for some teams? We're having a lot of problems with putting new students into different subgroups.
Good question. So I'll explain how we do it, and then maybe we can get into more like what your issues are, or we can afterwards one-on-one if you prefer. So we let students straight out choose whatever they want. They come, they have the first 4 weeks that they're on the team. They don't have to sign any kind of commitment. They can try out a different sub-team every day if they want to. They'll be getting some kind of generic basic level training. And that will really be the focus of those sub-teams during the first few months of the season, is training new members. So they'll kind of have this 4-week preview period, figure out what they want to do, and then once they've decided, they have to make a commitment to both 75% and that I'm going to stay on that sub-team for the year.
At the end of the year, though, they can switch sub-teams.
Yeah. There's one student who's volunteering here who did a different sub-team all 4 years on the team. Jackson.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that answer your question? Cool. So we have 5 more minutes for any other questions or discussion.
Want to stay late and ask us more questions?
Yeah, if there are no more public questions, we'll just turn these off and go chat.
One thing is that we do.
Harvey has a question.
Harvey, do you have a
Actually, it's
question?
not really a question, it's just a comment about your captain, co-captain selection process and
Yeah.
sub-team selection process is very similar. I've talked to a lot of other teams, a lot of other team coaches, and not every team does it the same way we do it.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like with a lot of things, you know, you really have to use what you're comfortable with. If your team is a team that really wants to be much more mentor hands-off, which is perfectly fine if that's the way you want to run your team. That's not the way we run our team. We really work mentors in collaboration with students. But if you're a team that is pretty much the students are doing everything and the mentors are stepping back and just letting them get on with it, you may decide that an election process is better for you. You may want to elect your team captain. We just found that wasn't really working. It just became a popularity contest. And also because we have so many mentors involved with our team that are putting a ton of their own time into it, and we have a lot of sponsors that are giving us a lot of money, that our leadership decided we can't have a team that is self-selecting because we need to be able to work with those people. They need to be people that we respect and can be responsible enough to lead our team. Right? Which is not always what students are going to pick. Students sometimes will, like I said, be a popularity contest. So that's the direction we went in, but it doesn't mean it's the direction your team has to go.
Yeah, and sometimes student selection works great, but honestly, you know, these adult mentors have, well, in like Mr. Harvey's case, a lot of years of experience picking really good student leaders. Yeah, so.
And even if they don't have a lot of experience in FRC, they're still an adult, most likely, who, you know, they have, I mean, some of you guys are approaching 18 and becoming adults and all of that, but like, a lot of that comes with experience. And if you have someone who, you know, has worked a job before, has been in college and things like that, there's a certain amount of experience that comes with that, and just kind of things that they know and they have experience with, and they can really help you out with that. As I was going to say was, if you guys, after this, if something comes up and you need to contact us, questions, comments, anything like that, please feel free to email us anytime. We will answer within 48 hours.
Yeah.
At frc1678@gmail.com. There will also be going out a feedback survey to everyone who attended as well. So please feel free to give us feedback there as well.
I'm going to say a couple things. One thing I like that you stress, leading by example. I think that is so important.
Yeah.
So we had an interesting situation. So a year ago, you know, we had a process where the mentors selected captains, team captains based on who was interested. We had some leadership training, did a variety of things. Those students had a hard time gaining the respect of some of their teammates. They both graduated, so we had a need for a new team captain. And we tried something we had never done before, which was an election process, but it was the students who were interested in being captains stepped up and wrote out a little paper why they were interested in being a captain. And then we had a debate. We had like presidential elections, and hopefully it was a lot better than the presidential election.
Would hope so.
We had all the students who were interested in being the team captain up on a panel. They each gave a speech about why they wanted to be the team captain. We had question and answer sessions between them and the students. And then after all of that, and mentors asking them questions, and then after all that, there was an election. So trying to get a little further away from the popularity contest, but really talking about what they were going to do for the team as the captain, what their strengths were, what they thought was important for the team.
That's really cool.
And it was really cool. I was pretty impressed with how that worked out.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. This is subjective, but do you feel like it worked?
Yeah, I think we have an excellent team captain.
Great. I'm glad.
I gotta say, one thing that's really important as student leaders, especially as captain and co-captain, you guys kind of become the bridge between mentors and students. That's something I've especially found is your mentors are going to want to talk to your student leaders about organizations, issues they have with certain people, things like that. And then your students are going to come and talk to the student leaders about issues that they have with mentors. And so ultimately it's really up to those student mentors to kind of bridge that gap between the students and the mentors. And that's something that Harvey kind of talked about a little bit, was just talking about how like our selection process and everything like that works. It's your team leaders are going to know your students best just because of that relationship, and they're going to have a really strong relationship with your mentors too.
Cool. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll be around.